Once upon a time in a quaint little village, there lived a miser named Miss Greta. Miss Greta was known throughout the village for her extreme frugality. She rarely spent money on anything, preferring to hoard her wealth in a hidden spot beneath the floorboards of her tiny cottage. Miss Greta's neighbors often invited her to festivals and gatherings, but she always declined, saying it was a waste of time and money. She rarely smiled and was never seen helping anyone. Instead, she spent her days counting her coins and worrying about her treasure. One evening, a terrible storm swept through the village. Trees were uprooted, roofs were damaged, and many villagers found their homes flooded. Miss Greta's cottage, however, stood firm, thanks to her meticulous maintenance. As she sat inside, warm and dry, she heard a knock at her door. Opening it slightly, she saw Mrs. Harper, a kind old woman from the village, drenched and shivering. "Miss Greta, my house is flooded. Can I take shelter here for the night?" she asked. Miss Greta frowned. She didn't like the idea of sharing her space or using her resources. But before she could refuse, a gust of wind blew the door open, and Mrs. Harper saw the cozy fire inside. "Please, Miss Greta," she pleaded. "I have nowhere else to go." Reluctantly, she allowed Mrs. Harper to come in. Mrs. Harper gratefully settled near the fire, warming her hands. Miss Greta gave her a blanket but did not offer any food or drink, still wary of wasting her precious supplies. The next morning, the storm had passed and the sun was shining. Mrs. Harper thanked Miss Greta and offered to help her with some chores before leaving. Though hesitant, she agreed. As they worked together, Mrs. Harper shared stories of her life, her late husband, and her love for the village. Miss Greta listened quietly. She had never really taken the time to know her neighbors or their stories. As the day went on, she began to see Mrs. Harper not as a burden but as a person who had faced many hardships with a kind heart. That evening, Miss Greta received another knock on her door. This time it was a group of villagers, including children and elders. They had come to check on her and to thank her for helping Mrs. Harper. Miss Greta was taken aback. No one had ever thanked her for anything before. Seeing their genuine gratitude and concern, Miss Greta felt a warmth in her heart that she had never felt before. For the first time, she realized that her wealth had brought her no true happiness. She had been rich in coins, but poor in friendship and community. Moved by this realization, Miss Greta decided to change. She invited the villagers inside and shared her food and drink with them. She even brought out her hidden treasure, showing them her collection of coins. "These coins have been my life," she said, "but they have given me nothing but loneliness. From now on, I want to use them to help others." The villagers were astonished but delighted. They knew Miss Greta had changed for the better. With her newfound generosity, Miss Greta helped repair the storm damage in the village, supported the local school, and ensured that no one went hungry. As time passed, Miss Greta became one of the most beloved members of the village. She found joy in giving and discovered that true wealth came from the happiness and well-being of those around her. Her heart, once as cold as her hidden treasure, was now warm and filled with love. And so, Miss Greta learned that the greatest treasure of all is not gold or silver but the love and gratitude of friends and community.